Sometimes the timing's wrong, and then other times it's oh so right. If you're new here, just to give you a little bit of context, last year I was in a read-along for the Malazan Book of the Fall, and there were 4 of us that were reading it, and I dropped out partway through book 3, and I was doing a vlog for every book in the series. You can go watch that DNF blog if you want to. I'll link it up here, but yeah, I dropped out partway through that. Another one of the readers dropped out after this one, and the read-along kind of imploded. And I think one of the reasons why is we were trying to be on a strict schedule, and these are kind of tough books. I was reading this at a very difficult time for me as far as just being very busy with my job. And I suspected, and a lot of people told me that I should give it another shot when I have more time to focus on it. So here we are. So here are some updates of me reading Memories of Ice, but as you can allude to by the title of this video, things went a lot better this time. Yeah, so we're trying this thing again. I finished book 1, and I'm enjoying it, which I did the first time I read this. My biggest strategy change with reading this book is I'm purposely only reading an hour at a time, namely about 40 pages, and then putting it down. So even if I want to sit and read more, what I'm putting in between is reading some short stories. So hopefully breaking it up will make it easier. Additionally, I'm reading this in July, about 14 months after the DNF. The month of May is always just horrible for me. And looking back at when I was trying to read this, I realized that I didn't have just the mental capacity to tackle something this dense and this challenging. But it being July, I'm off for the next 2 weeks. And I'm hoping to read this in about 2 weeks because I'm determined not to DNF this time. I may DNF the series after I finish this book, but I don't want to stop mid-book. But I mostly like it so far. I am finding that I didn't remember much at all, which was fine since I did start back at the beginning rather than I was around page 500 when I DNF'd the first time. But I think I'm noticing more this time around. I still have a big frustration with just one aspect of Erikson's writing is that he doesn't give you a lot of context. Everything is zoomed in, and you have these very personal stories, these soldiers here, these people here. But he doesn't give you the overall context of what they are, who they are, what they're doing, why they're doing it. So that frustrates me. And then occasionally he'll have, like there was a chapter where we saw Dujek and Kaladin as they were planning kind of something. There was some exposition that was dropped in there that illuminated what was going on, and I wish there were more of that. He's an author that I wish did exposition dumps. Most other authors, it's the opposite. It's just like, oh, could you find a more artful way to deliver the exposition? With Erikson, I find I just want it more. And I think maybe that's one reason why I struggled with the military aspects of this book as compared with Dead House Gates. Dead House Gates, it was very clear what was going on, who was on which side, what was going on. So even though the story, much like this, is very zoomed into different characters at different points of what's going on, I understood the big picture. And here I'm still just kind of struggling with that. But I'm liking it so far. I'm done with book 1, and the kind of the 40 pages at a time strategy gives me enough focus that I can sit and make sure that I'm focusing very clearly on what's going on, because for me to only read about 40 pages in an hour is quite extreme. I read much faster than that, usually 50, 60, even 70 pages an hour depending on the book. So it's going well so far. If you see this, that means I finished the book, because I'm not going to do another DNF blog. But I probably won't do frequent updates here. I think maybe after each book is probably about what feels right. There's 4 books within Memories of Ice, so maybe 4 updates. We shall see. But right now, pretty positive, and I hope it continues that way. Well, I just finished book 2, and I can confidently say that there's a 0% chance of me DNFing this thing this time, which is great news. I I didn't love book 2. I still find some of the plot lines just kind of dull. And I think my biggest issue is it reminds me a lot of Gardens of the Moon, where I just didn't know what was going on. For some reason, Dead House Gates, I was able to just kind of understand the bigger picture most of the time. And I feel with Memories of Ice, much like Gardens of the Moon, I just struggle to understand the big picture, and that's frustrating. But I like the writing, and I'm really engrossed in it. I'm still doing the 40-page bursts, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it, just kind of reading 40 pages, and then if I want to read more, I have some short stories I'm reading in between. But that's going really well, and I'm still just, really into it. Part 3 this is where I DNF'd originally in the next 100 pages, but I know that's not going to happen, even though I honestly don't really care about what's going on in Kapistan and the characters there, except for Quick Ben, wherever he might be. I'm not sure what's going on with the Warrens being poisoned, except for the people that are followers of the crippled god. So I'm not sure what's going on with that right now. For me, I enjoy it most when I'm just kind of hanging out with Whiskey Jack and that crew of people. Those are the characters that I kind of have connected with most. I am interested in what's going on with Talk the Younger. I actually messaged Matt and asked him a question about that because I was a little confused. Just like the first time, I remember when he ran off from the Lady Envy group, I was just scratching my head like, why are you doing this? And now it's like he's a tennis scoury. I don't know if I said that right. So that was a bit confusing. And I had to ask him about that to kind of clarify. So it's good to have friends that have read this before. But overall, I'm liking it. I mean, I'm not loving it. I don't think... I mean, it's hard to say. I'm only on book 3. I don't think this is going to be an all-timer for me, but I think it's something that I'll definitely be continuing the series at this point, because I do really like the writing, and I know that the highs are very high, namely Dead House Gates. But we'll see how the rest of Memories of Ice goes. I'll probably just do another 2 kind of updates here, just book 3 and book 4, unless there's something compelling along the way. But so far so good. It's nice to feel positive about this. I watched my old vlog just to see, and man, just seeing the continued frustration that happened, I was feeling it. And I'm glad that this one's a lot more positive. And I just know that at whatever pace I read this series, I'm going to have to read these books when I know that I have time to really just take my time and focus, and I'm not distracted by any other things at the time. So, hope you enjoyed this update. Next one, I'll be done with book 3 most likely. Decided I might do a few more frequent updates here. So I read 110 pages last night because it's just going well. And Kyle had asked me last night on the Discord a question that I wanted to answer here on the vlog. If you're not on the Fireside Discord, the question was, what's different this time around that's not causing me to, not love this book and not feel like I'm going to DNF, because I know I'm not. And I joked, I like the gray swords this time around. But it was more than that. And I was thinking about it. So the biggest issue I think I had was that May is there's 4 really busy months for me, and May is one of them. In addition to May being a very full month and the most tiring of all months for a teacher, I also had a guest conducting gig at the time. So I was at school from 8 to 6. I was doing rehearsals from 7 to 9:30. And then I was trying to go home and read Malazan. And I just didn't have the mental endurance or the mental capacity or the mental focus, is probably the best words to say, to be able to read it and comprehend it, because this does take a bit more focus than a lot of other things. And it's not that Erikson's hard to understand. There's nothing in the prose that's difficult. It's just denser than a lot of things, and you have to read a little bit slower. So for me, a typical kind of hardcover or trade paperback, I read about 50 pages an hour. I'm reading about 40, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. So that's really the biggest reason that I'm able to immerse myself in the text. The other thing is my approach before, maybe because I was preparing for the live chats that we had, is in many ways I was reading this series like it was homework, because I had those famous slideshows up, and after every chapter I'd look at the slideshow and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And then in addition to that, I was taking notes. I was writing down every POV character, and then when we got to the end of their POV, I was writing like where we left them and kind of what had happened, and it kind of felt like homework. So this time around, I was kind of taking the approach that, hey, I love to read. I'm just going to read this book. I'm not going to treat this like a bit of homework and try to take the advice. Philip Chase, when we kicked off this read-along that started a year and a half ago that blew up, Philip Chase said, just go with the flow. And it seemed counterintuitive, but it was absolutely true, because I'm just enjoying this as a book now. I think I'm even a little more positive than I was yesterday. Book 3 has started really, really well. Gruntle, I guess he needed, it was horrible motivation, but his motivation for him to turn into the total badass that he is right now, really enjoying that character. I'm actually enjoying what's going on in Kapistan, and I didn't like it at the beginning of the book, and I remembered hating it last year when I was reading this. So I just wanted to bring that up because that's something we talked about. I didn't talk about it as completely on the Discord because I was, kind of answering between chapters and things like that. But probably some more frequent updates. We'll see. I'm hoping to read for probably like 2 hours tonight. I'll probably read for an hour and then read a short story and then jump back in. That seems to work kind of. It's a good rhythm for me right now, so I'm not going to change it. But yeah, I'm enjoying Memories of Ice. We'll see. Everyone's saying that the convergence at the end is amazing. So we'll see if it can compete with Deadhouse Gates for such that book had such an amazing ending. Anyway, thanks for watching. Update soon. Finished book 3. It's amazing how quickly this book has gotten good. Book 1 was slow. Book 2, most of it was slow. But this third book felt so fast. I think because a lot of the character storylines are starting to interweave with one another, and seeing a lot of these characters together is great. Like the scene with Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben finally together, and Itkovian was there as well, and then Krupp or Krupp or however you say his name, he got into the scene as well. There's so many characters I'm enjoying. Gruntle, I like where his story's gone for sure. I like the thing with the Elder Gods. I don't 100% understand it, to be honest, with Karuli being Krull, although you see the names, it kind of tipped it off a little bit. I don't understand Cowler, his motivations either. But it was interesting, the point in this book where there was kind of where they found out what Whiskey Jack and Dujek were really doing, and there was just some great tension in that, and then they just kind of moved forward together. It was nice to finally see the Lady Envy group at the end of this book as well, to see how they play into all of this. But man, this is it's all of a sudden seems fast paced, which is remarkable. But I guess 600 pages in, it's about time maybe. But it's really great. I'm gonna just stop this update so I can start book 4. Well, I'm done. I'll probably shoot a longer kind of summation tomorrow. I finished about 15 minutes ago, wrote a Goodreads review. Wow, what an ending. Incredible. So much happened. So many just incredible character arcs. Itkovian. Whiskey Jack's death got me. And then it was worse seeing everybody else's reaction. I'm tearing up. It was so well done. This book, I don't know if I've ever read anything that really showed the toll of war like this did, and most specifically what happened with the bridge burners. it was so well done. So incredibly well done. But man, so much to unpack. I mean, Talk the Younger has a future now as Annister. The reveal, I remember talking about it on the first vlog about that. I'd picked up on something about someone looking funny at the standard bearer, and of course, it was great, subtle foreshadowing that I was just lucky to get and find out it's Taishren. That was incredibly well done. Man, the Itkovian thing, it's almost become a meme about like Erikson and compassion and all that, but my goodness, it's freaking true in this book. I mean, even like the resolution of the Silver Fox story was not anywhere where you thought it would go, but man, so much to think about in such a good way. Man, last chapter was like 90 pages, and I just sat and read. That was the last thing I read today. Just read the last. Did in one setting, like 2 hours. Man, it was so good. And still just some epic moments. The moon spawn emerging from the sea. I mean, freaking brilliant. I mean, wish he'd gotten there sooner, but... And I think I mentioned something about Cowler before. Man, I hope he gets his. I love the little epilogue. And I love that they resurrected Duiker. I mean, because I wondered about that in Dead House Gates, and I guess maybe this is why Memories of Ice was next. I do kind of wish, though, that I had read Memories of Ice kind of right after Gardens of the Moon, because there were some characters that I didn't remember quite as clearly. I still struggle a little bit with some of the aspects of the world, especially visualizing them, because I stink at that anyway. And honestly, I don't think Erikson does the reader much favor with that. He's fond of saying, he doesn't like to hold his reader's hands, and I think that includes with everything. Like, he may describe, well, like an easy one that I can picture, like a Moranth. He describes it once, and then you just got to remember. So I know there's aspects of kind of some of the things I don't remember. But maybe I'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow as I do kind of a summation when I'm still not just kind of reeling from this. I mean, it's kind of an emotional beating, but in a great way. Man. From DNF to 5 stars. I think that's what I'll have to call the vlog. Because, man, just goes to show that a great book at the wrong time just isn't going to work for you, even if it's a great book. I mean, I know now that I need to read Malazan when I have the time and I'm not mentally elsewhere, when I can just make sure that I'm 100% into the book, and also that I can read in smaller chunks. The way I read, a friend called it binge reading, and I don't think of it that way, but I often do several nights a week. I mean, read for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and Malazan's not conducive to that kind of reading. The way it worked for me this week, I was able to break it up. I would read for an hour, and then I'd read a short story or two, and or listen to music a little bit, and then come back to it, and that worked pretty well. So at least I know now a lot better. So even if it is slightly busier time of the year for me, I have some good strategies, because man, it worked, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad I gave this book another chance. I almost didn't. When I rewatched my vlog, the original one, the DNF vlog, when I rewatched it and saw just the horrible time I was having at the end, I thought, do I want to put myself through that again? And I didn't have to, because I didn't feel that. I still feel that there's aspects of the books I don't like. It's remarkable to me that everybody rags on Robin Hobb for being kind of slow-paced and slow burn and everything, but there were, like, the second book of this book is slower than anything I've read by Hobb, and I've read 19 books by Hobb now. So I don't know why Erikson doesn't get that same knock. Not that I see it as a knock. Obviously, I loved this book, and Hobb's my favorite fantasy author. But I wonder why he doesn't get that reputation that Hobb has, because I feel that as well. Maybe because his endings are so brilliant. Someone put in the, I wish I remember, someone put in the fireside, Erikson's conversions greater than Sanderlanche, and yeah, at least in this book. Although I felt it in Dead Hell's Gates too. But I mean, I have some recency bias right now, but I think this is a better book. And I love Dead Hell's Gates. I'm sketching out my top 50 books for future video series, and I mean, Dead Hell's Gates is in there. So I need to sit on this one a little bit more. But man, this was incredible. I'm so glad I gave it another shot. I'll probably shoot one more clip tomorrow when I'm a little bit more coherent. I hope this was somewhat coherent. Now looking back, I wish I'd done more updates for this vlog, but early on I was still unsure whether or not I was going to be able to finish it again, and I didn't want to take all the time to shoot a vlog that would never get posted, because I wasn't going to post 2 DNF blogs for Memories of Ice. My goodness, if I thought I lost subscribers the first time. Anyway, we'll chat tomorrow. So I won't make this final update as long as that last update from yesterday, but having slept on it, obviously I still love this book and was really blown away by it, especially as I'm editing, as I insert this at the end. I still wasn't loving it at the beginning, I guess because of the slow start, and it really wasn't. I think part of that was actually some just kind of trepidation going back into this after knowing that I DNF'd like 500 pages into it the first time around. But things I'm loving. I really love the world. I don't see all of it clearly like I mentioned in the last clip, but I do love just the vastness of it, and I see why every time people talk about world building in other worlds, someone jumps in and says, hey, don't forget Malazan, because yeah, the work that he did, along with Esselman, I understand, it's remarkable. Just the depth. I still have trouble visualizing. It's just, I'm always weary about looking at the wiki. Like when they mention something and I'm trying to visualize what that is, I struggle with that. Another thing I struggle with is it's often hard to understand like who's immortal, who is just regular humans and things like that, because I didn't know until like 2/3 of the way through the book that Kaladin Brood was like 1,000 years old or something like that. So I struggle with that, and it's probably a me thing. I also struggle with the whole in media res, how he just throws you in and just lets you kind of, you know, tread water for a little bit before he gives you a little bit of exposition. I'm not a fan of that. I do like the zoomed in approach though, because it's one of those, I said in my Goodreads review that Erikson's style of characterization is that you don't realize you care about a character until something happens to them. Like, I liked all these bridge burners, and then I realized at the end when all the things happened that I love the bridge burners so much. And it's kind of sad that this is kind of the nadir of the bridge burners story in this. So I'm curious to see where things go next. But I do love the writing. Erikson's a beautiful writer, and he got me emotionally at the end of this one. And I don't think I connected as emotionally to Dead Hell's Gates, and I love that book. So as I mentioned, I need to think more, but I think that this is probably my favorite of the 3, which is exciting going forward. Joanna had asked me on the Discord when I'm going to continue. You know, is that sooner or later? I reinforced my gut instinct was not right away, and I'm going to do that. Reinforced by just watching these past vlog entries that you just viewed. Reading it in small chunks worked really well for me. And I could still do that at any time of the year, but I also don't want to have a book be half of my month. I actually read this thing in 8 days, even though I was reading small chunks just because I was off. So I'm going to pick up House of Chains in November when I'm on break for Thanksgiving. I think that's a perfect time for me to pick it up when I won't be worrying about work or anything like that. And I can still read small chunks, but I can still get through it in what for me is a reasonable amount of time. So it's probably going to take me a couple years to finish this book series, but I'm okay with that because my experience with this book, even 14 months later of reading a Malazan book, well, I guess 15 months if you don't include the DNF, it still worked for me. And even knowing that there will be things that I'll forget, I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm sure there's people that read these as they came out, which was like a year between each book. So I don't see that this is a problem that I'll take a few months off between books. But I'm 100% positive on the Malazan Book of the Fallen right now. I'm really excited to continue House of Chains, find out what's going on in the Seven Cities, and see Kalam again, and see what's going on with the Felison storyline. I can't wait to see that. But if you watched this far, thanks for hanging out. You're probably a Malazan super fan. That's probably why you're here. But I'm so glad I gave it another shot, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the series. So thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'd love to interact with you there. And of course, the Fireside Discord. Come hang out in November. We can talk about this book when I read it next, but come hang out before that and see what else that me, Matt, and Joanna are reading over there. We'd love to have you there. So thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.